Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum assalam.
Jazakallah khair for taking part in our program of Glimmer of Hope, in which, as you know, you can see from our previous candidates, right, of the interviewees, right, who, inshallah, is supposed to help others to look into life in a different way and hopefully more closer to Allah, inshallah, right? Now, you are in the land of America now, right? First of all,
Trump land.
in Trumpland, of course. All right. So introduce yourself, your name, how old you are, and how when did you took Shahada?
Okay, salam alaikum. So Zachary Noteman, 39 years old, so not quite to the age of 40. Still young.
Still
Um,
youthful?
I
Yes, alhamdulillah.
I took Shahada. I almost lost count, but I want to say about 12 or 13 years ago.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So now, when did we meet? When did you join Steps of Allah?
So we joined. I joined Steps to Allah, I think about 5 or 6 years ago in
Right.
London.
And you were here for about 2, 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how? Okay, and you moved back to America after that, right? So what difference do you think that you experienced from the time you experienced not just in Stepswell in London and also in America?
Yeah. So I mean, London is a beautiful city, and when I took Shahada, way before I came to London, I was not. I wouldn't describe myself as practicing or even very religious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I don't really think I had much Aman, but that's changed little by little over time. And by the time I went to London, I wasn't searching for Islam. Definitely had nothing to do with my move to London, but somehow that's where I found Islam.
Well,
Um,
this is where Allah guides anybody at any time, isn't it true? Right?
it's true. And the funny thing is, my wife and I, we were going to have a baby, and we talked about going to Singapore instead, which has, much more Islam and masjids. But I honestly don't think I would have come to Islam in a place that's closer to that, which,
I'm from Singapore, remember?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found Islam in the land of the pub.
Yes. Right. So how okay, so you took Shahada, and of course in any reverse journey in Islam, right? It's always up and downs and all this, right?
Mm.
So what made you decide to have this change of, well, I'm a Muslim now, I need to be a better Muslim, and what happened?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a disappointing answer because when I took Shahada, most people, they believe first and then they take Shahada. The Shahada is like comes after they, have gotten a
Yes.
lot of guidance. But for me, I took Shahada first, so I did it backwards. And the
Okay.
simple reason I took Shahada was to marry my wife. And,
Okay.
she told me at one point, she said that, my mom says you can't marry me if you're not a Muslim. And
Yes.
so I said, well, it's not that big of a deal for me or my family, so why not? I'll just go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a pretty non-religious upbringing. I was very um, skeptical of religion. Maybe you could say I was even kind of looked down upon religious people a lot.
Okay. So
So yeah.
continue. Sorry.
Well, yeah. So I took the Shahada, and I think part of me, I realized that after I did it, I said, well, by the closer to the time I was going to have a baby, my wife and I were talking about having a baby,
This was
you know,
Liali.
yeah, and
Okay.
and we decided, well, maybe we should learn about this religion that we are. I said I am a Muslim, and I do see the benefit of having some kind of structure, religious structure. Even before I was really believing or practicing, I said, every child kind of has some kind of religious background, and I had a realization that I had to choose something. What was I going to do? Like, say, I'm kind of have a little bit Christian, a little bit Jewish, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit Muslim, you know. And so then I was like, I should probably learn about this religion at the very least. You know, my kid's gonna have questions for me.
Okay. And that is when um you went to London, Alhamdulillah, and even at that stage, early stage, right? The knowledge of Islam is quite limited, wasn't it true? Right. So what exactly happened that makes you, Alhamdulillah, as you are now, Alhamdulillah, and you're praying 5 times a day, I know, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
triggers that change in
Well,
London?
God Almighty took baby steps with me. Um,
Yes.
I think I was skeptical, and I was learning about it. And I think the first thing that I learned was got over some of the stereotypes about, you know, how harsh the religion is, that it oppresses women, and that, there's people have fought and died, you know, just because of religion, when, that would always seem like turn me off, that it caused a lot of bloodshed. And, the list goes on, and those are my ideas about it. And that, you can just Google, or you just hear, from time to time in any religious text, you hear these passages that make it sound like, it's just some kind of that people are just always being punished, or, it's things that don't make sense, being stoned for a little, what you might think is a little thing. So, that was probably the first thing, was to actually learn, okay, well, what's in this Quran? What
Okay.
does it really say? And so taking classes and learning about, um, what was the rationale for being able to have 4 wives? What's the, just, kind of, how does that make sense in our current
Yep.
worldview? And being able to, and then also learning about the Prophet Sallallahu, there's a lot of little things, learning what a beautiful person, he was, and how, and also the other thing that started to dawn on me is it just didn't make sense to make up the religion, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
that also, that there was no benefit for him, to do this. It was really, there was a lot of hardship. And so, I started to kind of, the first thing that happened was I started to doubt, being agnostic or atheist, like, oh, well, maybe, and opening up my mind to the possibility that there's truth here. So that was like, and then of course, that when you take a step, right, Allah comes running. So
Alhamdulillah.
I was pulled in ways that I never would have expected.
Alhamdulillah. And this, in the sense that rediscovering Islam happened in London, right?
Yeah.
All right. And I think it helps a lot to you have these friends that are practicing, that are reminding you about the deen. It's quite helpful to have this companionship, and of course a support group that we are trying to provide, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you didn't have that, it would be extremely lonely, and, very difficult, because, none most friends or peer group that I was
Yes.
around were not in that same frame of mind. I mean, some are practicing, different faiths, but yeah, not having a community is really tough.
Okay. So now after Alhamdulillah, so you relearn how to pray and all this in London and all this, right? Um, we did our Iqra lessons and all this, right? And so how does this change in your, so you become more practicing, right? So how does it change your life after this?
Um, that's that's a hard question to give a short answer to, but, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like, I think I think the main thing is just the, wanting to be better, number one.
Yeah.
um, and I think realizing what my purpose in life is, and what my goals are,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's not all about, obtaining the top job that I can get, the top salary, the biggest house or whatever it is. It's
Mm.
or a lot of people like to say, oh, life is about maximizing your pleasure and your happiness, right? And
Yes.
so like just a mindset shift for me really, that I realized that that's not what I'm actually striving for.
Okay. And um, it's also like when you establish the prayer, for example, right, 5 times
Mm-hmm.
a day, or the Alhamdulillah, then it's difficult to leave the prayer, isn't it true? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But you need to reach that stage first. Do you agree?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yes. Yeah, once you've established it, then there's no, you would never stop.
Yeah, because this is when, as part of the prayer, is about asking Allah for guidance, and if Allah guides us, that's it. Nothing can misguide us. So, Alhamdulillah, I mean, I'm really happy in the sense that we went to holidays together in Lombok and all this, right? And we see quite a lot of each other on um, the Skype and all this, right? And to see that the impact after that of Allah's guidance is quite, for me, it's amazing that you are able to, even after you go back to your own country, America, right? You're still able to, alhamdulillah, establish, trying to practice the deen as best as you can, right? Even though the support or the mosque and all this may not be as much as London, but there's always this constant striving in America, isn't it true?
Yeah,
You're in California, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But but yeah, and alhamdulillah, if I did, when I was in New York before London, and you know, honestly, every day that I woke up, I had anxiety, and I had trouble sleeping, and there was this like sense of dread that um it just it's hard to really be working at a company and trying to have a high stress job, and um there's always people around you that are richer or more successful, and you're always competing, and that's what's really gone away. I don't
Yeah.
have trouble sleeping, alhamdulillah. Like
Mm,
there's a like a peace, for me.
yeah. And of course, I heard, is it from you, from your wife, that even Liali, your daughter, when her classmates in school were talking about something about Islam and she was defending Islam, isn't it true?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that is amazing. Can you explain to us what happened?
yeah. So I mean, a couple of times, like um we actually had to tell her, to be careful with talking to other people, and that
Yeah.
everyone has different points of view. But yeah, she defends it. Even like let's say she's at a friend's house, and they're serving something. She's like, no pork. I can't eat that. Is that halal? She's very strict.
Yeah.
Um, but
Absolutely.
for children, it's actually easier, I think, to
Yeah.
understand, and because they haven't been, they haven't been kind of exposed to all the pressures and all these societal forces
Yeah.
that pull you
Well,
away.
of course, alhamdulillah, it's all due to the upbringing, of course. It's that you need to have this, structure in the house, the do's and the don'ts, and the children must abide to it. I mean, because that's how, I mean, it's not just sending the child to the madrasa, isn't it true? Everything must start from home, that you are building up, inshallah, right? Righteous children, right, that are able to worship Allah, right? Like you, or even better than you, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah.
So, a few final questions. Um, what difficulties that you face in America? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the Trump land, being a Muslim now, do you keep Islam to yourself, or
Yeah. Yeah.
do you what kind of things that you face, and what happen if
Yeah.
they find you're Muslims?
Yeah. So I the truth is that what you lose, or what's difficult is there's so many things. There's certain ways that people connect in different countries,
Hmm?
just getting to know somebody or colleagues at work. And a lot of the ways that people like to connect in this country, happy hours, or, people just love talking about wine in California. So you
Yes,
kind
of
of
course.
lose that ability to participate in a lot of ways that people, just build rapport. But on the other hand, um, I do have to say that, there's people are very respectful. You know, adults who, especially professionals, they understand. Even if I go to someone's house and they're drinking, my boss, um, I say, I have to pray, and they're like, oh, of course,
Okay.
come into
But
this room, or
I think it does help that you're in California, isn't it true? It may be different if you're in some parts of America, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, on the other hand, in California, there's less religion in general in people's lives. They're very liberal, so they love to be tolerant, which is great. But on the other hand, there's just not that many religious people, not as many religious people, walking around.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Now, so to end this, right? What advice do you give to, people who are trying to find the truth, right?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, as you said just now, that you started discovering Islam on the backtrack, which is, of course, Allah has His own plan. So everybody's journey is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice do you give for people who are looking into Islam or looking for the truth?
Yeah, I would just say, I said before, like if you take a step, if you walk towards Allah, Allah comes running to you, right? And for me, definitely that was the case. Like even just a little baby step, really, actually, all it takes is sincere request. Just being sincere and actually opening your heart and mind to the possibility, and just directly, because we have a direct line to Allah. So all we
Yes.
have to do is ask Allah directly. You don't have to ask a friend. You don't have and then Allah will make whatever the condition is.
Sure. And the number is 24434, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The 5 daily prayer, inshallah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, educate yourself. I bought when I was trying to explore, I bought Islam for Dummies. You know.
Mm-hmm. Islam for Dummies. This is what you bought. Okay.
Talk to Sheikh Halal. Don't talk to Sheikh Google.
But I'm sure that was before you came to Steps2Allah, right?
Yeah. No, I was starting
Islam,
to learn.
Islam for Dummies. Okay.
I started to, before I had anyone that I could reliably.
Yes.
And then the people that did have knowledge, I did go talk to them and ask them questions. Of course I went to them and I said, I don't believe a man should have 4 wives or this or that. And then I heard their answer to it, because that was for me the big stumbling blocks was this.
Yes.
These are the problems with the religion, and yeah, I mean just, and then stop and think, how does this all happen around us without a designer, right?
Yes.
How do you get something
Definitely.
from nothing, right? Logically speaking.
Yeah. All right. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair for your participation. And of course, Ramadan Mubarak, belated one. Of course, we have a few days left. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to grant you good health and your family members, of course, right? And of course, guide all your other family members in the right path. Yeah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you and I to meet each other again, hopefully in London, right? In the near future.
One
right?
day.
Inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum assalam.